not. All right, now can I get the copy video URL? There we go. Here,
With
watch
the
this
recent
video
news
here.
of Amazon's New World being delayed until 2021 and many hungry MMO fans being disappointed by this news, I decided that today I want to talk about the upcoming MMORPG that I personally believe to be the most promising, Ashes of Creation. Before we jump into it though, this video has no sponsor and took me a crazy amount of time to make, both with research, fact checking and editing, so if you'd like to support my work for free, this game has an affiliate program that everyone who makes an account has access to. My link to this can be found in the description below, and all sign-ups to Ashes of Creation before September receive a small in-game statue for your house to commemorate our struggles through COVID-19. So for those of you that have never heard of the game before, what is Ashes of Creation? Ashes of Creation is a Western-made sandpark MMORPG that's focused on a strong mix of both PvP and PvE content. This game was initially kickstarted 3 years ago, but was already fully funded to completion via private investment from the game's creative director, Stephen Sharif. Unlike many of the Eastern MMOs that have had Western releases over the past few years, Ashes of Creation has consistently said from day one that there will be no pay to win in this game. Due to this, the game will operate with a no box cost subscription fee business model with a cosmetic only cash shop. The thing that makes Ashes of Creation the MMORPG that I'm personally the most excited for is the sheer scope of the project. This game seems to be combining all the best aspects from all the top MMOs over the past 10 years and combining it into one game, with all of that being tied together by the game's most unique feature, its node system. Throughout the world in Ashes of Creation, there's points of interest on the map called nodes. These nodes are basically areas that can progress to different stages of civilizational development as players kill monsters, quest, gather, and adventure within that node's area of influence. Starting out day one when the game first launches, the world will be pretty empty, but let's say you and a group of friends all decide to kill mobs and gather in a certain area. Over time you'll be contributing XP to that area's node, and an expedition will appear with quests. As more players are drawn to that area, it will level up into an encampment with more quests, more NPCs, and more opportunity.
Okay, so just kind of pause it here with the whole node progress or whatever. So like he says in the game, or in the video here, when the game first starts, basically you're going to have these nodes. Let's go back to the world map here. You're going to have
on the map called nodes. These nodes are basically
so you're going to have like the map with all these different counties, provinces. I mean, they call them nodes, but you know, we can kind of make it something a little more germane. So depending on wherever you spawn in, and later they kind of talk about there's, I think, 4 main areas that you spawn into. Early on in the game, you're really going to want to choose where you want to level up in. And one of the things that we had kind of talked about, Code and I, is, you know, are these zones all going to be like their own level area, or is it just going to be you can go in at whatever level you happen to be and the zone will scale to you? Let me make it kind of interesting, because I can definitely see people coming into the game with predefined guilds already intending to get into certain areas, and as the video goes on, it'll explain why that is a goal that people are going to have. But I think it's really interesting that, yeah, you start in these areas and then you get to progress your node up in levels, which opens up that area. And that we'll just kind of let this finish explaining this, and then kind of you'll understand why getting into an area very quickly and starting this progression, I think, is going to be very, very important, and it may even be worth, uh, if you're planning on building in a certain area, getting in touch with other guilds that are planning on doing the same thing and working together.
and an expedition will appear with quests. As more players are drawn to that area, it will level up into an encampment with more quests, more NPCs, and more opportunity. After that, the node levels up into a village, town, city, and finally a...
So, it has here in this node stages. So it starts with the wilderness, then you get an expedition, which is its alternate name is Crossroads. Time frame to advance a few hours, and then it goes to an encampment or a camp. That takes many hours. So I'm wondering, like, could you have? Can you get to an expedition in day one? Can you get to an encampment by day two? That says 3 village, few days. So now by the end of the week, you have a village, town, many days. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's a month. And then city, it says few weeks. So that could be, maybe 6 weeks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe a town is 2.5 weeks, and then a city is 4 weeks. And then a metropolis or a metro is your sixth stage. And it says many weeks, and that could be, a couple of months. So depending on what the progression is, and I think it's also dependent on, like it says, as more people move into an area. So I'm wondering if it's not just how many hours you grind away in a particular area, but you need a minimum threshold of players to kind of tip it over the line. Obviously, if you're going to have a city, you need to have a city-sized population, right? So either you're going to have one very large guild, or you're going to need a handful of guilds working together on this, which I think creates its own interesting dynamics, because often guilds are seen as being adversarial to each other, where in this game, as it will explain in this video, it will be adversarial but also complementary to work with other guilds.
Giant sprawling metropolis with more opportunity, world events and quests appearing at each stage of development. Now that's a very simplified explanation of the Ashes of Creation node system, but on top of that there's also a lot of variables within this system. For example, at launch there will be 103...
Okay, so this is the world map, and let's just kind of take a look at what we have here. And he does explain, you get all the different kinds of biomes, but down here it looks like you have like a boreal forest, maybe, potentially some swamp, and here some plains, forest. Definitely have a wintry kind of biome that kind of goes up into less wintry, I guess. Looks like maybe some desert along this one continent here, and it's definitely 2 different continents with a couple of different islands. Probably call this one Greenland. And then this looks like we have some very, very high mountains, like extremely high mountains compared to all the other mountainous areas. Definitely looks like desert down here, desert, taiga or scrubland, Minecraft. Definitely some grassy plains, some tropical areas, lots of little islands dotted in here. Um, and then this looks like kind of like Utah, this part up here. And there's these little white circle things he kind of touches on a little later, that I think are your spawn in points. So yeah, depending on where I guess you want to build in, right? So there's one right here, and then it has like a little path that goes here to the little diamond area. I got another circle one right here, and it has like a little diamond spot there, diamond spot here. Um, there's a circle here, and you see the little dotted line on either side of it, but it doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. So I don't know what is exactly up with that. Maybe that's mystery. And I think there's supposed to be 4, right? So it's 1, 2, 3. So there's another one on here somewhere. Could be down here. But 103 nodes. It's pretty good. Now, that doesn't... Oh, there's a 4th one right here. And then, yeah, it has kind of a little dotted line that ends here. And there's a little dotted line that goes up with a little triangle diamond right there. So 103 nodes doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have 103 metropolises, and we'll let him just cover that bit here
3
too.
different possible node locations, and the location of that node dictates the quests and world events triggered upon development. At this point you're probably thinking, well, what happens when every node reaches its final stage? Wouldn't that become boring? Well, due to how the system's designed, this isn't possible. In leveling up one node, you lock out the possibility for adjacent nodes to grow to the same size. To change this and de-level a node so that adjacent nodes can progress, players will need to participate in a PvP node siege to destroy a city, for example, so the town node near to it has room to grow and different content can then be unlocked. The way this system is designed intends for long-term player-driven replayability, where each server will have a different history of development and unlocked content. No two servers will be the same, an MMORPG with a true ever-changing world. When it comes to node aesthetics, there will also be a lot of diversity here too, as the node will take on the architectural appearance of the race that contributed the most XP.
Now, the one thing I want to comment in here about how they have the different nodes and adjacent nodes can't level up next to a node that already has a metropolis, and you have to do a PvP siege. In a way, that does almost feel like forced PvP, because if you're centered in a metropolis and the neighboring node, or maybe two neighboring nodes, collaborate together to take down your metropolis, that affects you. And he kind of gets into that here in the video. So in a way, you cannot be exclusively PvE in this game, depending on how you play it. Because again, if you warehouse yourself into a metropolis, and two neighboring provinces, two neighboring nodes decide that they want to attack you, or one neighboring node wants to attack your city and make a siege. Well, if they succeed, they will destroy your city, therefore your home base. So whatever you were doing there, and he does say later in the video, you will lose some of your stuff if you have that, if you have supplies and whatnot stored in that city. So that's going to have a bit of an effect, I think, on how everybody plays. But it does suggest there is forced PvP, which not everybody is going to be into. Um, you know, I don't mind PvP when it's not arbitrarily forced on me all the time, like, or that I don't, I don't have to stay in certain, like Eve Online, for example, right? They have the war deck system, where if you're in a player corporation, some other corporation can declare war on you for no reason and basically harass you and make your life miserable. The only way to avoid that is to stay in a player corporation, or in a game corporation, which really can limit you in a lot of the things that you can do. Um, so it doesn't really allow you to experience the game in its entirety. Where this sounds like a nice compromise in that forced PvP aspect, because, well, number one, you don't have to set yourself up in a metropolis. I mean, there's obviously going to be benefits to being in a city, especially with trades, for buying, selling, trading, etc. There's probably going to be a good amount of protection. Obviously, if you're in a metropolis, there's a lot of people there, and they're going to want to defend the metropolis as much as possible and defend that metropolis. So it's not like you are being singled out as a PvE person and being forced into PvP, which I kind of like. You still, I think, have a little bit of an option here, right? Like, if you're a PvE person, and you do not want to directly um, be involved in the siege, I'm pretty sure you can still manufacture through the trade system whatever is needed for the siege, right, to help defend and stuff like that. And that, I don't think, is going to trigger you directly for PvP. Now, judging by what they've shown in some of the videos, if somebody catapults a flaming boulder into your workshop, that I think is going to impact your ability to do PvP. But what do you think? I mean, do you think I'm far off there, Shift? Is he even here? Hello. I think he's still gone away. So, anyways, leave your thoughts in the comments here as well. I'll read them out and stuff like that. Or if you want me to pause the video and go back a bit.
To its development. So let's say a guild of orcs went to an area and contributed the most XP to a node, building it up to a town. You've then got a town with an orcish aesthetic. Maybe a guild of dwarves wanted to explore a node in the mountains. They could eventually have their own dwarven city in the mountains. The aesthetic of the node changes at every level of development based on the race that contributes the most XP to the node. On top of all this, each node in the world will be assigned one of 4 possible node types.
Okay, so basically, using a World of Warcraft reference, you could create Ironforge. If you have enough people who are playing dwarves together, you could create an Ironforge type situation, right, where it's a dwarven city, which I think is really cool. And I like how it's depending on who contributes the most XP, because you might be in your guild of dwarves and there might be a guild of orcs, and even though you're not directly competing against each other in PvP combat, you're still competing in that player versus environment situation where who is more active, who is playing the game, who is contributing more XP. In a way, it does seem like this game is being designed to try and get people to play it as much as possible and as often as possible. Really to get people hooked into the game with this kind of gameplay, because I wonder if there is going to be a tooltip or something that you can see who's contributing, or if that's just going to be a mystery, right? If you're not really going to know which group of people is contributing the most to a particular node. And in a way, I think it would be almost better if it was like a surprise, because then it's like, okay, well, the encampment is orc, we're a bunch of dwarves, we need to work harder, so that when it goes into a town uh, or village, that it's a dwarven village, not an orcish village. I think that could be a lot of fun too. Though I'm pretty sure it's probably going to have a while you're in the town, there's probably going to be a message board or a tooltip or something like that, and that probably will have an XP bar or something that's going to tell you what the next iteration is going to be based on the XP that's being contributed.
With each having unique benefits. You've got divine, economic, militaristic, and scientific node types. Advancing a scientific node over an economic node, for example, will give different building options for players to manage in the node, such as libraries, colleges, and artisan buildings, whereas if they leveled up an economic node, they could build markets, stock exchanges, and trade-focused buildings. Each node upon hitting the village stage of development will have a 1-week cooldown before node elections begin. In this, players can try to become the mayor of the node. As a mayor, you get to allocate resources, set the tax rate, and initiate quests to advance the node, as well as choose building projects contained within that node. The way the mayoral election system is designed is different for each node type. For scientific nodes, it's a popularity contest where you vote another player in. For economic nodes, it goes to the highest bidder. For divine nodes, the player with the most node-related service quests completed will become the mayor, and militaristic node mayors will be decided via a last man standing battle royale type minigame where players interface through a champion rather than their own character. Obviously, bad mayors will be a thing that exists in this game, so every month the election process will happen again so that other players have the chance to challenge for mayor.
Okay, so let's talk about this a little bit, because I think this is cool. I mean, this is awesome, because not only do you have your node village based on the race of whoever's contributed, depending on your guild type, or depending on, right, yeah, I would say your guild type or the guilds that are in that area, um, will define the node based on, is it going to be military, science, and financial, and so on. So this is going to allow you a greater variation of systems. I like that players get to have a little more self-determination. It's not like you have this NPC king that's just constantly barking out orders or whatever. You actually have a mayor, and there's a process in which players get to determine. So if you're in a PvP friendly area, then more likely you're going to have a trial by combat for mayor, because, well, PvP is kind of what everybody's doing there. Um, if you're in an area where people really want to work on trade skills and stuff like that, then you're probably looking at like a commerce or a science based, which again, in and of itself, I think it's pretty cool. So I think it really opens up a lot more player interaction, again, in a PvE sense of things, while still allowing a feeling of player versus player without that actually necessarily being the reality of it, which I think is really, really cool.
Other than its node system, Ashes of Creation is also aiming to have a diverse range of content to appeal to pretty much every type of MMORPG player. Let's start with some of the PvP content that will be present in this game. PvP content in Ashes consists of open world flagging, caravan PvP, duels, battlegrounds, castle sieges, node sieges, arenas, and guild wars. But before all of you PvE players get scared off at the thought of open world PvP, you'll be happy to know that this game has anti-grief mechanics in the form of its corruption system. When it comes to corruption, players have 3 states: green, non-combatant; purple, combatant; red, corrupted. I've displayed an image on screen that shows how this system works, but from the point of view of a non-combatant PvE player minding their own business, if another player comes up to you and kills you, they will become corrupted and receive ever-growing penalties the more innocent players they decide to kill. Eventually, corrupted players can drop their items, which can be looted by other players. They'll also lose more experience upon death, and also feel dampening in PvP, so they become weaker. Corruption gained is also greater based on the level disparity, so a high level randomly killing a new low level player really isn't worth it. Additionally, the game will have a bounty system where players with high corruption score will appear on the map for bounty hunters to track down and kill for rewards, and NPC guards will also attack corrupted players on site, limiting their access to services within nodes. The caravan PvP system in Ashes is designed to bring risk vs reward gameplay. Due to storage being localized to each node and different areas of the map having easier or harder access to certain resources, players will need to transport goods between nodes via caravans. When a caravan is spawned, it will create a moving open world PvP zone. When players approach the caravan, they will be given 3 options: attack, defend, or ignore. Caravans can transport goods from more than one player at a time, and I can imagine this system alone will bring about the existence of mercenary guilds who attack caravans or defend them when paid by other players.
Pretty good.
Castle Sieges will be a monthly event in which guilds can fight in a 250 vs 250 battle to take.
Okay, well, I didn't. First time I watched this, I didn't catch the size of the battle. 250 by 250 city siege battles. That is cool. My worry, though, for that is can your system, can the average system handle that? How are they going to deal with that, with spells and all that kind of stuff going off? Sorry, I just kicked something and I have a bleeding toe. But yeah, 250 people. That's dang. That's good. I mean, that's a really, really nice size. That's the one thing that you really don't even get in World of Warcraft necessarily, right? Like, you can get big groups of people together for battles and whatnot, but I'm not sure you can get 500 people in the same place on a WoW server. Not easily, and not without a whole lot of stuff. Well, you'll have to enter to find out. Should be. Oh, let me double check. Oh, no, there's supposed to be one, but apparently my bots didn't connect. So reset. Open. Now there is. Yeah, so just checking out this new game Cody came across, and I'm just watching some videos, just doing some chat. I don't know where he went. He was here, so we were both going to kind of chat about this together. So much for that. I think the bleeding stopped, and I've put my fan back blowing on me up here. But yeah, it's in Alpha 1 right now, so I guess they're estimating another year or two before it comes out. It's just just something to talk about, just as a potential game, and then I'll probably get into some Red Dead or something like that. But we're 8 minutes into a 26-minute video, so so I guess once a month you can do a city siege or something, which is good. I mean, because you don't want to have a city just get built up into a metropolis or whatever, and then all of a sudden, some neighboring node comes over and whacks it.
Take control of one of the 5 castles in the world. Node sieges are different to castle sieges and are the catalyst for change in the world. Node sieges can last up to 2 hours. If a node is successfully defended, it can't be attacked for a certain period of time in relation to the level of that node. A village, for example, can't be attacked for another 20 days, whilst a metropolis cannot be attacked for 50 days if successfully defended. Additionally, once a node siege is declared, there's a period of time where many services in the node are shut down in preparation for war. For a village siege there's 2 days notice, and for Metropolis there's 5 days notice. These node sieges can only be declared within a certain period of the server's prime time to give everyone a chance to attend. If a node siege is successful, the node is reset to...
Okay, so let's talk about that, right? So only during prime time. But let's go back a bit. There's 5 castles in the world per server, and you can control a castle. Which I think is awesome too. I mean, that's the ultimate bragging rights, right? To say you own one of these 5 castles, and then having the sieges can only happen during prime time. I think it's awesome because you can't get sneaky, right? Like, clearly people are going to be paying attention to what days of the week is the server busier, so that if you're going to declare an attack against an opponent, against a city, you're going to pick the day that is least likely to have the most people on. But if you have to declare that attack so many days in advance, then that gives those people in that node, in that particular village or city or metropolis, the chance to maybe change their schedule or be like, hey, I need to get on. So this is almost like planning a raid. Yeah, basically it's like planning a raid.
0, and players with resources stored in that node will lose some of those resources.
Sorry about
and
that,
real space player housing will also be destroyed. Guild wars are another separate PvP.
Yeah, so like it just said, right? When the metropolis gets destroyed, you lose some of your stuff, and this is where, as I mentioned before, it is kind of a forced PvP system, because even though you might want to be a PvE player, you can still lose your stuff if you're in the city. So it almost forces you to get involved in defending the metropolis, which, I mean, in a way is fair, right? It's a risk reward. And if you're going to try and take advantage of the metropolis for PvE purposes, the risk there, of course, is that another node or 2 nodes could come together to attack. I don't know if you get 2 nodes could come together and attack the same city. I have a feeling it's node versus node. That would be interesting, though, to see how that balances out. That'd be a good question for whoever happens to, like a developer or something like that. Like, could you have 2 nodes adjacent to one with the metropolis, and could they come in and together declare a raid or a siege to the metropolis. That would be interesting. Anyways, Guild War system.
PvP system in Ashes of Creation, which basically allows guilds to declare war on each other and receive certain objectives to meet a victory condition. This system isn't fully fleshed out as of making this video, but it seems like a more in-depth version of what Black Desert Online currently has, with objective-based components mixed into it too. Guilds can be at war against multiple other guilds at the same time, and guild wars operate outside of the game's corruption PvP flagging system. I think duels, battlegrounds and arenas are fairly.
So this kind of gets back to the point I was making about EVE Online. Is, can a guild randomly declare war against any other guild? Because in a way that is another form of forced PvP. So does that mean if you join a guild that you are accepting the risk of PvP? Or can you have a purely PvE guild that is safe from, say, a mercenary guild declaring war on you and extorting you? Because that's one of the things in EVE Online is if you're a predatory corporation, you can basically find a smaller, weaker trade type corporation, and you can extort them. You say, "Well, just give me this ship. The ship's worth billions. Just give me the ship, and we won't basically wipe you out or force you to log off for the entire week, where you're going to lose billions anyways of ISK." So how does that work? I'm wondering. And like I said, it's not fully fleshed out yet, because I think that is probably going to be one of the hardest bits of balancing that they're going to have is can you set yourself to be a PvE guild? And once set, does that mean you can never go into PvP? Because that's an unfair advantage to be PvE, max yourself out, and now you're ready to get all fisticuffy. Whereas if you're a PvP guild right from day one, that's going to be a little bit more of a struggle, a little bit more of a grind. What do you think, Coach?
Okay, can you hear me good now?
Yep.
Okay, so say that. Ask the question again. Sorry.
How do you? Okay, if you can do um, guild attacks, like you talk about the caravan, right? So say you're moving your guild from one place to another guild can attack you. You have guild wars and stuff like that. So how do you balance a guild that wants to be a PvE guild versus a PvP guild system? And it kind of creates a situation of, once you declare yourself a PvE guild, you can never be a PvP guild, because it would be unfair for a PvE guild to be able to operate unmolested, max itself out, and then say, okay, now we're ready for PvP. While a guild that has been PvP since day one has had to deal with those struggles of dealing with PvP situations. Whereas I think you could be a PvP guild and declare yourself PvE, but then that would lock you again in that same situation of, well, now you can never PvP. Um, how would you balance that? Because the last thing you want is a bigger guild just randomly declaring war on smaller guilds, saying you're going to give us XYZ, or we're just going to grief you out of the game.
Well, they've already done that with the corruption system, right? So,
Right,
like, if
but it says in the video, the guild thing doesn't follow under that same system.
well, I don't know. I think when it comes to guild wars, like, I think that's going to be. I imagine that's going to be an option already in itself. Like, I mean, if you're going to be in a guild, I think you're going to have to deal with like guild
PvP.
wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well,
like, I
and
think
that's what I mean. Like, is it just, there is no PvE guild system? It's just, you're either in a guild or you're not.
yeah, I don't know. Like, maybe they'll have like a toggle for it, or something. Like, I don't know. They're gonna have to show more of how that system works in order for us to even really kind of comment on it more, but because I mean, I've never really played another MMO where it's had like specific guild wars. Like even WoW doesn't have that.
Well, the closest game that I know of is EVE Online.
Yeah, and I never really got into the PvP of that game too much, so I really don't.
Well, how it basically works is if you are in a player-created corporation, and I am a different corporation, I can declare on you. I can declare war on you without any notice. We may have never met before. We may have never talked before. All I know is I seen your ship and I right clicked on it. I seen your corp info. You're a trading corp. You do shipping and mining, and you're small. And I have a bunch of big warships. So I just declare war on you and say, hey, you're going to give me the most expensive ship in your fleet, or else. And that or else is any time that you're online, I'm going to harass you. All right, I'm gonna make it so you can't do what you want to do, so you might as well just log off. And I'm going to do that for as long as I want, so that you're going to lose billions in mining and whatever. So you might as well just give me the money, or you might as well just give me the ship. That's what I'm kind of worried about if you just have like an open door guild war system.
Well, maybe they'll have it where it's like if you're in a guild and you come across somebody in another guild, if you have enough confrontations with members of that other guild, then you can option in to start a war with them. And if it's enough, like if you declare war, it's not an option. I think at that point, like it's you guys have fought back and forth a few times, you know, killed each other's guild mates a few times here and there. So yeah, you have the option to declare war.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how they're going to do that, because for me, that would make or break the game. Because EVE Online is unplayable because of piracy, and CCP seems to relish in that ability of that of player griefing, and even Star Citizen. I'm kind of concerned with that you'll be running into similar types of player griefing. Anyways, let's continue on with the video.
Self-explanatory features that Ashes of Creation will have that we all like to see in MMOs, but overall when it comes to the PvP content this game will have, it sounds like everything I've ever wanted in an MMO, from the risk versus reward of the caravan system, to node sieges being the catalyst for change in the world, to the prestige of your guild owning one of the 5 castles on the server. It seems like this game has PvP content for everyone from casual to hardcore and everything in between. PvE content will play a massive role in Ashes of Creation and features content in the form of quests, open world dungeons, instanced dungeons, open world raids, instanced raids, world bosses and monster coin events, as well as all the activities related to the growth of nodes. PvE dungeon and raid content in Ashes will be designed for group sizes of 8, 16 and 40 players. This game will feature a mix of both open world dungeons and raids, as well as instanced dungeons and raids, with 80% of them being open world and 20% of them being instanced. There will be no group finder in this game, so you...
Okay, so let's just stop right here. Stop the presses. No group finder. If there's one thing that killed WoW, in my opinion, that killed the community of WoW, was group finder. So here you have 8, 16, up to 40 people. No group finder, which means you have to make friends. It means you need to be part of a effective guild. It means that you have to form relationships, and those are the things I think are going to keep people inside of the inside of a game a little longer. Because I don't know, Raid Finder and WoW, it ruined the game for me. You know, there's no reason to be part of a guild in WoW other than you get the guild bank and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the group finder's horrible, and I'm so glad this game's not introducing it.
I wonder how people that move from WoW currently into this game are going to feel about that. Like, do you think there's going to
Uh,
be a lot of people that are just going to like piss and moan and gripe, or
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're gonna have the Wrath of the Lich King babies there who are gonna be like, "Where's my group finder? What do you mean I have to run all the way to the dungeon every time I want to run it? I can't just speed run. I can't just speed level through these dungeons over and over again."
well, it even says in the video that the deeper you get into a dungeon, the more difficult it gets. And since 80% of these are open world dungeons, what that basically means is you can go in and out as you want. You know, you might have like 4 friends and you might just be able to go in and tackle the first boss or whatever. And that's as far as you go. And then you back out and that's your dungeon run. And then,
Yeah,
maybe you go in one day and there's another 4 guys there. Say, hey, let's work together. And now you got 8 people, so now you can maybe get to the second boss, or and maybe some trash towards the third boss or something, right? And then obviously to get to the end, you need 40 people. So I think that is a nice touch too, because the dungeon is scaling, but it's not like you're clicking a setting in the finder for
yeah.
for mythic or epic or whatever. Um, I think it's just going to feel more natural, and I think that's going to help the game feel more alive and not maybe as artificial. Like WoW feels fake as hell. That's
Well, and I don't think every dungeon, especially the open world ones, are going to be up like are going to have to take 40 people to get to the end. Like I think you're going to have dungeons,
yeah,
open world, and instance that will take 8, and you can do the whole thing with 8. Then
yeah.
you're going to have ones that take
Well,
16, you can do the whole thing with 16,
well, I don't think
and
you were
so
here,
on.
but they're even saying like when you're doing the sieges, it's 250 players versus 250 players. So that's
Holy
open
shit!
world. Yeah, right. Like so, like I mean, I I'm interested to see what I have to. I'm interested to know what the specs are. I haven't even looked at what the specs are for this game, but I'm going to guess you're going to need a decent system, or they're running some majorly heavy duty servers that are doing most of the crunching because a lot of the time the client is the one that's running a lot of the math, right? And the servers just kind of redistributing all the information. But anyway, let's continue on. If you guys have any comments, leave them and we'll talk about it, or join the Discord and jump in for the conversation.
You'll need to join guilds and find party members via social interaction if you want to partake in a lot of PvE content. The way open world dungeons and raids will work is that they increase in difficulty the deeper you venture inside. At the entrance you might be fighting weaker, lower level mobs with fewer mechanics, but as you get deeper into the dungeon you'll fight tougher enemies with more mechanics and better loot. Additionally, something you need to bear in mind is that all of the PvE content that's available in Ashes depends on the location of the nodes that the community decides to develop.
So yeah, so what he just said here is depending on how developed your node is how much content is unlocked in that node. So if there's a node that is wilderness, then the amount of content in that node is going to be very limited. And this is kind of clever because what this means is people kind of have to keep coming together towards each other, right? Like you're always having that intersection of players, which is what is going to encourage PvP, but at the same time I think that's also going to help the world feel lived in as well, because if you're 3 nodes away and though those nodes are all wilderness, then unless your guild is working to build something in that node, there's really not going to be a lot of reason to be there. And I kind of like that idea.
Yep, yeah, it's definitely neat.
One server may have access to completely different raids and dungeons to another server, purely because their nodes developed differently in different locations. So unlike other MMORPGs, the endgame PvE content really isn't a linear progression. It can't be a linear progression because different raids and dungeons will be locked or unlocked depending on where nodes are developed and what stage they're at. So in a way, it could also be in a PvE player's best interest to participate in a PvP node siege to reset the node that unlocks a certain raid, so that another node can then be developed which unlocks a different raid. A fun, unique piece of PvE content that I think a lot of people will enjoy in Ashes is its monster coin system. This is an event that either spawns randomly or following the advancement of a node, in which a horde of NPC monsters will spawn and attack the node. During this time, players can use an item called a monster coin, which they can receive as a rare drop in game, to turn into a monster and assist the NPCs in attacking the node against other players. During a monster coin event, the node can't be destroyed, but buildings, services and NPCs can be disabled for a period of time. Quests in Ashes of Creation are divided up into three categories: events, tasks, and narrative quests. Events are things that happen in Ashes as a result of the development of the world. Successfully completing an event will have positive consequences such as buffs, and failing events will have negative consequences such as natural disasters or node services being unavailable for a period of time. Tasks are quests without excessive amounts of text and story around them, such as collect X resources to help build a blacksmith for the node. And narrative quests are more traditional story quests that can be personal to your class, race, or the region of the world you're in, with some of these story arcs being locked behind further development of the node.
Okay, this bit right here, they definitely need to have a chat with Rockstar about horses and buggies. There's this caravan here, and I think it's supposed to be attached to this horse, unless it's like supposed to look like a 1960s Volkswagen van.
The world you're in, with some of these story
I think it's supposed to be attached to this horse here, and it's
arcs
clearly
being locked
not.
behind.
So, I mean, this is an alpha. I mean, this is alpha or pre-alpha, but otherwise, it kind of looks like a steampunk version of a VW van.
And further development of the nodes. If I was a role player, Ashes of Creation is without a doubt the MMORPG I'd be looking forward to the most. This game's being designed with so many great RP features to really add that extra level of immersion. First, let's talk about the extensive player housing system.
Player housing! Why, after, I don't know, how long, 20 years, why doesn't World of Warcraft have player housing? I mean, why does it have to be so difficult? And they're going to explain the three types of player housing, and it's brilliant. It's just brilliant. I love it.
This game will have three types of player housing: instanced apartments, real space open world freeholds, and static housing within nodes. Each of these three types of player housing become available once a node reaches village stage or higher. Instanced apartments will become available in a node if a mayor decides to construct apartment buildings within an empty plot. These will work similar to the housing system in BDO, where you approach an apartment door and you've got a list of options for whose apartment you want to visit. Static housing within nodes are real space player housing that players can buy that will be visible to everyone. You'll be able to decorate the front of your house with yard ornaments, seamlessly enter and exit, and see your house grow from a small cottage to a mansion as the node levels up. Freeholds are large real space player housing plots that can be situated within the zone of influence of a node, but not actually inside the node. Think of static housing as buying a townhouse that grows in size over time with the node, but freeholds as owning a set size plot of land in the countryside. Freeholds are roughly half an acre in size, and due to limited space in the world, players can only own one of these per account, whereas apartments and in-node housing are limited to one per server. There's many buildings you'll be able to place on your freehold, such as a blacksmith, stables, and other stuff related to crafting, role-playing, and other life skill-related content players might want to partake in. Each of these three forms of player housing will allow players to decorate them with furniture, some of which is functional, others just cosmetic, and when a node's destroyed, players will lose their housing. However, a template will be mailed to them so they can quickly load the layout of their housing hassle-free when they eventually find a new home. As with every
So what I like about this And this, again, you look at games like, well, World of Warcraft, right, is the standard. You have Ogrimmar, you have Stormwind. Where do the people live? I mean, Stormwind has, I guess, apartments and condos and stuff like that. But for a city that size, it's supposed to have thousands of people in it. Where do they all live? And then when you go outside, I mean, it's you got a little bit of NPC stuff here and there, but it's fairly barren land. And what I like about this, with the freeholds and stuff like that, is I think this is going to give, again, that the world, at least the node, a lived-in feeling. As the node builds up, more of these things become available, and you actually have the suburbs to the metropolis. And I think that's a really cool thing and really nice touch. And of course, when an invading army comes in and takes the metropolis down, of course, that invading army is probably going to come and take your land too. So you'll end up, like I said, you lose your house, whatever. You'll have to rebuy it either in that node or in a different one, I'm guessing. And I wonder how that's going to work though, right? Because obviously when you lose the metropolis, that means whatever faction came in, they get to build, I guess, their metropolis in their node, which is the adjacent one. And I guess your node goes back to wilderness. And then so you basically have to start from scratch, rebuilding your node up to pre-metropolis, because then you will have to go and attack your neighbor a couple of months down the road, destroy their metropolis so that you can recreate your metropolis. Kind of makes you wonder if there's going to be a lot of that back and forth, or are players going to be actually strategic about it and say, hey, we've had this metropolis here for a while. A bunch of us have done all the raids that popped up in this area. So we're going to let this one get raised, and then we're going to start rebuilding in a different node while having new access to new raids in the node that just beat us. So I guess it depends on how much server cooperation are you going to have, how strategic are the guilds and whatnot going to act, or is it just going to be pure and utter chaos? And I guess that'll vary between servers, which I think is kind of fun in and of itself. Like I said, no two servers should ever really be identical, because they'll be at different stages of different developments of different nodes having access to different content. Which again raises, I guess it raises an interesting question of server hopping. Are you going to be married to just one server, or is this game basically promoting multiple characters on multiple servers?
I would think that they would probably do multiple characters on multiple servers. I mean, it even said like there's a lot of replayability.
Yeah.
Try out a different class on a different server.
Oh, it's very possible. Yeah, so one thing this thing doesn't mention, at least not that I caught, was how many characters you can have on a single server. I'm guessing it's going to be one per server. And since there's 64 variations of your character.
Well, it did say you can have alts, so I'm assuming you can have more than one per server.
Okay, yeah, I didn't catch that part. But still, I mean, there's 64. He gets into it here later in the video. There's 64 variations of classes. So yeah, you could be a very busy person if you were trying to play all as many classes as possible.
Every good roleplay MMO, Ashes of Creation will feature a wide range of races. Currently the game is planning on 9 playable races for launch, each of which have different cultures, which will be reflected in the appearance of nodes that they contribute to the most. You've got 2 different variations of humans, dwarves, elves, orcs, and a race called the Tulnar which live underground. Different races will have different racial abilities, and each race will have different base stats. However, there will be no gender lock for any of the races, and every race can play as every class. Other nice RP features the game will have include an extensive emote system with interactable furniture, the ability to lean against scenery, sit on benches and dance with other players. You'll be able to play parlor games with other players inside of taverns.
one of the things we were talking about earlier, can you dance on a mailbox though? Because I mean that is some great early game ways to earn some quick money.
Yep.
And then Zerfall says, I was literally just watching this video myself. Do you play it? Wonder if it's worth it. Yeah, no, this is the second time I watched this video. And the first time I watched it was earlier today. And I didn't even know this game existed before today. So this is just kind of an introduction for myself. And I'm trying to determine if it's going to be worth it. I mean, it's looks very promising. But unfortunately, the biggest, or I guess that I guess the biggest curse you can ever say of a video game is potential. This game looks like it has awesome potential. They're in alpha stage 1, so there's no way to get into an alpha right now of the alpha 1. If you pay Boku bucks, like if you go into Ashes of Creation, if you go into their shop, you can pay, I'm guessing it's American, $375, and that'll get you access to future Alpha 2 test phase as well as both your beta test phases. But I mean, you got to spend a lot of money, but you're also going to get 9 months of game time, which is $135 value. And then you're going to get $125 in their, I'm going to guess that's their microtransaction store. And then there's some other cosmetic stuff here. Same boat then. To be honest, I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know it wasn't out yet. I haven't heard of it. Yeah, it's. I mean, if it's an Alpha 1, then they've definitely got a few years behind them, because to create a game like this is, I'd say, minimum 5 years. So they're probably a good almost 5 years in development would be my guess. And I guess they're still looking at 1.5 to 2 years of development. Yeah, that's going to be next on my list is the Asmongold interview. So that's literally right there. So that's what I'm going to be looking at next after this one and reacting to that.
Some being dice games, others involving cards. You'll be able to join different types of social organizations in the game, such as...
So having all the, like it's saying, you have different games and stuff like that. It sounds like they're taking a hint from Fable, because if there's one of the things that Fable was really good as a game is all the mini games that were inside of it. And if you look at Red Dead Online, which we've been playing a lot of recently, and he said there's no microtransactions, only subscription. Well, I would say they kind of contradict themselves here, because there's $125 in Embers, which is in-game marketplace credits, no pay to win. So there's going to be some kind of microtransaction. You're just not going to be able to pay your way to winning the game. Everything in the store is going to be cosmetic. So it will launch in late 2020. Well, hopefully. But yeah, definitely going to watch the Asmongold here. I really want to play this, but I honestly doubt I will be interested anymore after 2 years of waiting. And then, yeah, it will launch in late 2020. Yeah, so far, I mean, this is July 18th, 2020. And I think he actually says in this video that there's still a little bit of time before release. Now, if they're in Alpha 1, they are, I would say, at least a year, because Alpha 1 is going to run you typically 6 months. Alpha 2 is probably going to run you 4 to 6 months. Then a beta test is usually going to run about 3 months for a first beta run, and then your second beta run is probably going to be a month or two, because the second beta is really just polishing. It's just making sure that you have the correct spelling and stuff like that. So I would say if they're getting close to the end of an Alpha 1 And from what I'm guessing, just from perusing, I think they're probably fairly close to the end of an Alpha 1. You're going to have probably a month or so between Alpha 1 Alpha 2 because they're going to take everything that they've learned from Alpha 1, shut everything down, um, do some more polishing, bug fixes, stuff like that, and then do an Alpha 2 where not only are they going to have all the some hopefully significant bug fixes and stuff like that, but they will also interject new content that they want to have ready for release so that can be tested. So I think safely a year. And yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, right? Like I am so done with World of Warcraft. I am completely done with Blizzard. I've been part of the Blizzard boycott, ever since the the Hong Kong, struggle of our life kind of thing there with the Hearthstone tournament there. Um, and just bending over backwards to China. The one thing I do like about this game, this is a North American created game. It's not a port or anything, and that just seems like most of the MMOs that we've seen in the last few years have been ports from a Korean game or one of those Asian kind of deals, and they're just so heavily microtransacted, and they're all free to play. And I think the free to play concept, while noble, I think just hasn't been able to do what I think developers were hoping it would do. It's not, I think, getting most MMOs ever have. Yeah, exactly. WoW being an exception, EverQuest, um, and a lot. I mean, and you look at a lot of the and EVE Online's not an Asian port. That's Icelandic. Um, so yeah, if you look at the games that are still around today, that have been around forever, and really WoW and EVE Online are the only two. Even EverQuest, I think it's barely there, and they're on like EverQuest 2 servers. And I think and I don't know if they're even still up and running, but for the most part, those are the only two. They're subscription based, and this is going to be subscription based too. Anyways, let's continue on.
As the Scholars Academy, Thieves Guild or Traders Company, and there'll also be a marriage mechanic in the game that may unlock special quests and further functionality with player housing.
And you have children.
Overall, from a roleplay perspective, it seems as though there's going to be more than enough choices and customization in Ashes of Creation.
This is what's going to sell this game to girls.
That each player's journey in this game will be complete.
Like, that is cute as hell, right? That little otter kind of puts his feet down. He's got the little smile, got the mustache thing. That sells this game to girls. So this is definitely going to get girls on. Let's see. They tried to use free-to-play to hook players in and suck them up with exactly. Loot boxes and stuff. I think if you want quality, P2P or subscription is the only way to go. Too many trolls and kids and free-to-play. True. And almost every free-to-play is pay to win, right? Like, you're getting boosts, or you're getting a trinket that's going to give you a minor, even if it's a minor stat boost, it's a stat boost that's above everybody else and affects your RNG and stuff like that. Vaterant, thank you very much for the follow. Very much appreciated. I think ESO is the only long-time highly populated game without subscription. Of course, you have Final Fantasy. Well, didn't they have to completely remake Final Fantasy at some point, so it's kind of like a new game? And so I guess that's been around for a few years as well. I'm thinking games that have been around for 20 years. Hens, thank you very much for the follow. But yeah, as I was saying, these little otter mounts right here,
unique, and it will also have all the immersive social.
They are adorable. They are adorable. That's going to get girls to play this game. I'm sure. My girlfriend's not a game player. I'm pretty sure if I got her up here and I showed her just that clip of just those otter mounts, she'd probably be. I would play the game just to ride around on that mount. They released like 2 major updates, basically DLCs, but yes, I think they remade it after launch. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Final Fantasy came out originally, and then they had to take it down, and they completely remade it. and then it's been like that since. And then yeah, they've had a couple of DLC since then. It's just like when they had the Star Wars MMO, right? Like I think they completely scrubbed it and remade that game like 3 times, and it still failed every time.
Elements that can help bring people together in an MMO.
Graphics don't look too bad either.
Professions and life skills in Ashes of Creation are referred to as...
So for me, this is what I like, because I'm definitely like the crafter type. Okay, either answer your phone or turn off your car alarm. Seriously. So professions I think are really important, and I really like what they're going to say here. I saw the lizard mount. Yeah, and well, exactly. That looks really, really cool. They show that here near the end.
Artisan classes. These are split into 3 different trees: gathering, processing, and crafting. Gathering professions consist of fishing, herbalism, lumberjacking, mining, and animal taming. Processing professions basically refine raw material via the use of certain freehold buildings, such as forges to process ore into bars, lumberyards processing logs to planks, and so on. Crafting professions consist of alchemy, armor smithing, blacksmithing.
So yeah, I will be a herbalist alchemist. That's why I've been in WoW. I'll probably play some form of healing cleric in this game. Make a Swede. No, man. I'll be walking around with like the colored shirt with flowers on it, and I'll have my wagon painted in flowers and psychedelics, and it's gonna have a peace symbol. It's gonna say love in those balloony letters. I'm gonna walk around like a long-haired hippie Jesus type. Uh, I already got the beard for it, but crafting profession. So yeah, he's gonna say them all. But okay, alchemy, I think it's gonna be really useful. Armor smithing, blacksmithing, carpentry, which I think is great because obviously players are going to have these villas, as you see here, and you're going to need to furnish your villa. And I'm hoping that this is kind of a job that's going to be kind of restricted to the players, that the NPCs aren't going to be the ones that are competing. You know, I'm really hoping that of the crafting professions, that you kind of have to wait for a crafter to come along that can build you these things, as opposed to rolling into a town, walking up into an NPC, and you know, the NPC's name is Leon's, right? Like, I'm really hoping that you actually have to find a player and then commission them as a way of making money or something like that, or recruiting them to your guild. The one I like here as well, ship building. So it kind of makes me wonder. Obviously, there's going to be NPC ships. There's going to have to be, to go from continent to continent. But if shipbuilding is a crafting profession, that to me suggests there is going to be some high seas shenanigans going on. Piracy. That could be fun. I think it could be very, very interesting to have guilds that specialize in watercraft combat. That could be really, really fun, where you may have to actually hire a guild to ship you from one continent to the other, because there may be pirates, and the NPC vessels. I would think they probably. I don't think they're going to put up much of a defense. When I saw shipbuilding, all I was thinking about is pirates fighting krakens. Well, and that's a possibility. Why not, right? You're going to have sea monsters. You're going to have monsters on the land. You're probably going to have raids that will exist on islands. So you're going to have to go out to an island somehow, because an NPC ship won't get you there. Siege weapons, of course. That's just a given with having to attack castles and metropolises. So I really like that. This is really adding a lot of variation to the gameplay, and it's accentuating the need to have guilds. Again, just having no dungeon finder is already the #1 reason to join a guild. But having siege weapons, shipbuilding, that to me says that having a guild family is going to be paramount to, I think, long-term survival. I think as a single player, I think it may be a bit of a struggle to avoid PvP situations while mastering whatever skill you happen to have. Nodes that are on the coast will be harbors. Yeah, exactly.
Smithing, carpentry, cooking, jewel crafting, scribing, shipbuilding, siege weapon building, and weaponsmithing. In this game, each character will only be able to truly master one profession. You'll be unable to master multiple. You'll still be
Again, you can only master one profession, which means you're going to need that variety in your guild. And this, again, is going to force people within a guild to treat each other well, to treat each other with respect, to not hopefully take advantage of your fellow guildmates. Because, well, if you can only master one particular skill, um, you may need another master to create something that you need. You may need to create something at your masterful level for somebody else, because as he's going to say here, everything a player can make will be comparable to endgame gear. And this is the one thing about World of Warcraft that makes your trades virtually useless, especially if you're weaponsmith or armorsmith, because you can never create an item that is as powerful as what you're going to get out of a dungeon. Where in this game, you can. Now, I'm wondering, obviously, to collect the materials could be very difficult. But at the same time, you could be maybe you're somebody who prefers player versus player, so you're not running around doing all the raids, the PvE raids. And because you're not running around doing the PvE raids, you're not getting easy access to that gear, or the gear you're wearing is specialized to PvP, and it doesn't do you very well in a PvE setting. So as a PvP person, you're running around collecting the materials, take it to a weaponsmith. That weaponsmith then makes you the best PvP weapon in the game. And I think that is awesome. I think that's how a game should be done, so that you have two avenues to basically max out your gear: playing the game and doing the content, or engaging players to build you the weapons and armor that you need. And I think that is highly appropriate. And again, since you can only master one thing at a time, uh, you're going to want your guild to have hopefully one of each master type. So you're going to need a handful of people. And obviously, once you've mastered yourself, it probably behooves you to help somebody else who's in the guild master up to your level as well, so that, again, you're benefiting the guild. The one thing I haven't noticed this guy talk about, player stores. Can you set up some sort of a player vendor system? Like, there's no mention of an auction house. I'm sure there will be, because that, I think, would also be very, very important. And you can almost, depending on how the player economy works, uh, you could almost cut out the need for PvE content to get the weapon itself, where you can create more of an economy of people just finding the materials and then having the masters create them.
able to progress with multiple professions, but not to the extent of mastery. This is to create the need for community interaction and create a sense of identity. Crafting in Ashes of Creation is also being designed so that it won't become irrelevant like in other MMOs. Crafted gear will be on par with the highest tier.
In the interview video, I believe the game director said that you get the ingredients for high-level gear from the same bosses that drop high-end gear. Okay, so I'm guessing it just makes you less RNG reliant. True. Okay. Yeah, like I said, when I get into the next video, I'm sure a lot of these questions will probably be answered, right? A lot of the things I'm saying are not knowing, right? And this is like my first. See, for me, this is first impression, right? So this is me taking just this video, because out of everything, this is all I have watched so far. It's just this video. I've done some light perusing of their website, but this is my introduction to Ashes of Creation. And so far, I am very impressed. I like the look of it. It looks pretty good. Kind of looks like the texture pack I use in Minecraft, so it's not terrible. Um, but really, just it's the intricacies of all the different game types and game modes that are in this, and if these developers have found a way to really balance this out, it could result in a very nice long-term game for sure. Um, I think people with huge number of followers will organize everything before launch to make it better settlements and choosing roles, so not everyone is a fighter or crafter, etc., which is a huge advantage to take over early. Core Code says yes. Asmund Gold, if he commits to this game, will have a huge advantage. So much so, it will be sick. Uh, DK Strider says having mayors and GMs and making flying exclusive to those people will entice Twitch streamers, which will help build this game's community. Absolutely. This has to be the smartest idea they've had. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I bet it will work out great for free marketing. 100% chance Asmund Gold will stream it, probably Tim as well. And yeah, I think having flying mounts limited to how many people can get them, or how difficult it is to get flying mounts, which he's going to talk about here very soon. I mean, there's only 5 castles, and the castles are going to be prestige, number one. I mean, the biggest, baddest guilds are going to attack and claim those castles, and they are going to um, they're going to try and hang on to those things for as long as they can. Um, having big name streamers like Asmund and whatnot. Hopefully by then I might get myself up. Once I get my new computer, I'll be able to improve things. And I have to come up with a brand. Anyways, they will become targets. So you're going to have people that want to play with them, but you're going to want people that want to have the prestige of beating them, which again is going to be very good for the game because it's going to make their streams a lot more interesting and whatnot. And yes, I think a big part of this game, and Core Code and I were talking about this earlier, you're really going to want to have your guild defined even before launch. So if you can get into the betas, you can kind of practice and see how long it takes to build up to what mastery or what are the tricks to kind of speed run yourself a little bit in those areas. But you're definitely going to want to come into the game and say, okay, we want to go to this node, and this is what we need to farm, like gold farmers, right? You're going to have this program of how you're going to maximize your XP to start building up into the metropolis. Now, I wonder if you can have a castle and a metropolis in the same node. That'll be interesting. Um, and then, of course, you have to figure out your defenses, because it's one thing to be building up as fast as you can, but you also have to remember that in the node adjacent to you or next to you, there could be another group of people. And if you get to, say, a stage ahead of them where it's limiting what they can do, they might just mosey on over the border and smack you around a little bit so that they can get ahead of you. So if you're focused too much on just getting to Metropolis and not thinking about what's happening around you, or if you're not aware of what's happening around you in other nodes, you really leave yourself wide open for other guild wars, guild raids, and things like that. So there's a lot of strategy that can go into this game. And that, to me, is a lot of fun. I love the strategy aspect of that. Let's see. This has to be the smartest idea they've had. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I bet it will work out great for free marketing. Yes, read that part. Core Code says I might actually try to go where Asmon is. Strider says I've been raiding with Asmon for a while. He brings people, which helps MMORPGs stay healthy. It's not really about him as much as the community that follows makes it. And Hans says it's going to be a very exciting server. Strider, our raid group is already discussing how to organize. Exactly what I was thinking, says Hans. And yeah, let's continue with the video.
drops from raid bosses, and due to being limited to mastery of only one artisan
there's the
class,
lizard.
guilds will have to
That is pretty
organize
badass
multiple
looking.
people to meet their craft.
I mean, that thing does look pretty badass, right? Like, I wonder, can you attack from mounts? Because look at the claws in this guy, right? I mean, this thing, this versus the otter, it's otter, this thing's gonna just tool the otter. I mean, the otter might just kill it with cuteness, but if these things can attack, if your mounts can attack, that'd be awesome. A lot of people complain about Asmund, but you're right. He helps build a community and brings players. And just think of all the entertainment you get from just being around him, all the shenanigans he gets into. Alex says, I'm glad a metropolis can only be attacked every 50 days, so at least there will be some stability instead of everything switching constantly. True. And 50 days is casual friendly. That's the other thing is, casuals are only going to play, an hour a day, 4 to 6 hours a week. That's casual. And so 50 days still gives them enough time to explore the city, to get some advantages out of the city and stuff like that. And you can still defend the city. Now, I'm going to imagine that, and I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe this will be answered in the next video. But if you have crafting of siege weapons and you have weaponsmiths, then I'm guessing as the mayor of a city, you can direct armaments to be built in defense of the city, right? So you're going to direct people to, obviously you're going to have to direct people to build within the city for apartments and stuff. I'm going to guess that's carpentry and whatnot. You're going to have people doing food collections and stuff to feed the people in the city. So that's, your alchemists and whatnot. Thank you very much for the follow, Alex. So you're going to have your siege people that are going to be having to build, siege towers, right? Put the sieges up on the city and stuff. Thank you very much for the follow, Strider. I think if you can do that, I don't know if you can, but I would imagine that part of being in a metropolis is not just it becomes a metropolis, but you have to fortify or maintain the metropolis to some degree. Otherwise, it would weaken, right? So I'm thinking that just because it says metropolis doesn't mean all metropolises are made equal just on the construction alone. Obviously, the players that live there are going to have a huge effect on the defense of the metropolis. But I think if you're creating siege engines and stuff like that, they're behind the walls. They're firing out at the players who have siege engines firing back at you. So it could be a lot of interesting things there. As an Age of Empires fanboy, that's what makes me very happy about AOC combining my lost to MMO and strategy is my ultimate dream in a game. Yeah, and love, yes. Combining my love to, yeah, and I think there is going to be a large amount of strategy in this game, and that kind of makes me very, very excited. Anyways, let's look at some more of this lizard.
And gathering needs to initiate sieges.
Oh, look, the noble beast. Like the hero pose, right? Like that pose there is, can you smell what the rock is cooking, right? Like he's got the people's eyebrow. That is a pretty smart looking dragon, because that's what it's going to be. I mean, it's not just a lizard. That has a pose of a dragon.
Complete projects and contribute to the node.
And that looks like he's ready to cough up a furball, but
Personally, the profession I'm most excited for is animal husbandry, as you'll be able to breed different animals together to create some really weird...
See, look at the tail on this thing. You should be able to do a tail attack, right? Some guy's galloping along on his horse, and you just flick the tail out there, the horse goes, the horse lands on top of the player, he stands up at half health, right? And then you just plink him with whatever you have. But I think you should be able to have combat on your mounts. But yeah, that's a pretty cool looking lizard.
And wonderful mounts.
And the thing is like he says, you can breed different animals together to come up with cool looking mounts. Yeah, like that does sound really, really, really cool. And again, it's this game isn't just about go out, kill 10 things, and bring and come back, and I'll send you out to kill another 10 things of that type. Like, this is not like the Crossroads. I know, lots of WoW references. You know, and it's not just, you know, go get me 10 fangs and bring them back, or hooves, 6 hooves, or whatever. I like the idea that if there's animal husbandry, you can spend a lot of time just dealing with your animals. And it kind of makes me wonder if there's maybe going to be some sort of Farmville, you know, because I mean, you have your little house, right, that you have there, and it has gardens and stuff. So are you going to be able to choose what grows in that garden, or is that going to be like, if you're an alchemist, right, rather than going out and farming all of these alchemy materials, you can grow them in your own garden. Now, the issue with that, of course, is anybody can come along and probably jump the fence and you know, steal from your garden, right? So I guess that's going to be a little bit um, of a balance issue there, right? Um, yeah, well, we're almost there. So there's something about unique mounts. I won't spoil it. Okay, well, let's continue on. And this elk, moose, deer thing looks creepy as hell.
The class system in Ashes of Creation is quite interesting and leads to a lot of variety. First, you'll start out by picking a primary class archetype between Bard, Cleric, Fighter.
Okay, so yeah, these are your primaries. So I will probably be a cleric for my primary, and then I would probably be either a mage or a ranger, I'm thinking, for my secondary, depending on how that works, right? Because you can combine your classes. I never understood Bard. Are you just sit there and play on your little, you know, ukulele at something? I mean, well, it's probably a mandolin, but either way, ding 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 ding. Okay, the creature fell asleep, or you debuffed it. I don't get that. Um, but cleric, fighter, mage. So you have a battle mage, ranger, which is probably going to be more ranged. You know, it's usually bows, arrows. Rogue is your close combat. Melee, summoner. Obviously, summoning tank is your person that's going to take a beating and get spanked. I mean, those are kind of cool. That's what do we got here. You can go cleric and cleric as well. Yeah, you probably could. Yeah, that would probably give you a massive boost to healing or whatever you're doing. But I usually play squishies. Like in WoW, I play a female dwarf priest. Um, Mostly shadow, because I've managed to heal just as well in shadow as I can otherwise, a lot of the time, and still be able to dish out some pretty good damage. Mind you, I haven't played WoW in like 2 expansions, so.
Mage, Ranger, Rogue, Summoner, and Tank. Eventually, as you progress with your primary class, you'll get to choose a secondary class out of the same 8 options I previously mentioned. So choosing to be a Mage, then Fighter for example, would give you the overall class of Battle Mage. With this system, there's a possibility of 64 different.
So yeah, so here you go, 64 types. So yes, you could absolutely be, well, if you say where you have your cleric is a high priest. So yeah, you can scryer, Templar, Oracle, Protector, Shadow Discipline, Rogue, Shaman, an Apostle. And then you were saying you were thinking tank, so you could be an Argent. Oh, there's a Paladin, tank cleric, because you were wondering if there's a Paladin class code. Could be a Knight, Spell Shield, Warden, Knight Shield Keeper, or a Guardian tank. I imagine the Guardian is going to be that immovable object that is probably not going to do a lot of damage, but is probably going to be able to just kind of stand there, picking his teeth with something, and he's just going boom, 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 like, you know, Neo in the Matrix, just taking it all down. But yeah, they got some really cool stuff in here. Oh, you can even be a Marvel superhero. You could be a Hawkeye. Rogue and his assassin. So yeah, Bard as a minstrel. And have High Priest, Weapon Master, Archwizard, Hawkeye, Assassin, Conjurer, and Guardian. Conjurer
different
sounds
class
kind of interesting
combinations
too.
which are displayed on screen now. Ashes of Creation will be designed around the Trinity system of tank, healer and DPS. You will not be able to change your class's primary role, however with some effort you will be able to change your secondary role. Weapons and armor will not be class locked, but
yeah, I did say alts will be a thing in this game, so yeah.
to change your class's primary role, however with some effort you will be able to
right here. Alts will be a thing in this game. So there you go.
To change your secondary role. Weapons and armor will not be class locked, but some classes will obviously be more efficient with certain types of armor and weapons. And when it comes to the game's combat system, it will use a tab target action combat hybrid system.
Okay, so that part I don't really understand. Like tab target clearly is you hit the tab button, you switches target, and then you go ham on it. So I'm guessing the other one is you just run up to the target and you start wailing on it. So, I mean, that's pretty typical, I would think. Unless I got that wrong. Feel free to correct me.
The way this system will work is that each class will have two categories of skills, tab target skills and action combat style skills. Players can choose to have up to 75% of either tab targeting abilities or 75% action combat abilities.
Or is action combat where you have to physically move around the target like you're actually fighting it in real time? No idea.
But not 100% either way. Personally, the way I'd imagine this system will play out will be something close to Guild Wars 2 or Arcade. However, the action combat side of this combat system is still in development as of making this video, so it's hard to say how the complete system will actually feel. When starting out in Ashes of Creation, you'll first make your character, choose your primary class, then you'll be given the choice to spawn at one of 4 divine gateways in the world. Each race does have their own starter zone and starter quests, but they won't be super mandatory to do, more of a recommendation. There's nothing stopping you as an elf.
So as I kind of alluded to earlier, so you have 4 areas of the world that you spawn into. And yeah, I think some guilds are going to be like, okay, say you spawn, oh, we want to spawn in at this one over here in the northwest part of the map, and we want to basically beeline it to over here by the coast. Right? Because I'm going to imagine these mountains are going to be somewhat impenetrable. So they want to be over in this green area over here. There's probably a couple of nodes, right? Or you want to get up into these mountains over here and you're going to create a Dwarven kingdom, right? So you have to travel through all of this. And if the game is 480 square kilometers, that depends on how fast you run around and stuff. That could take you a little bit of time to get there. Meanwhile, another guild is running in the same direction, but they decide they're going to start right here, in this node. And so they start grinding out and you're still running up here. So they potentially could build a metropolis or towards metropolis sooner than you. Or, I mean, the one thing that's going to suck, unless they do something different, is there's 5 castles, and if anybody's in the beta and alphas, they'll be able to know where those castles are and basically run straight for them to try and capture them as early as they can, or to set up in the node in front or next to try and block other players from getting to that castle before they do. Strategy. Because I imagine you can't just walk into these castles. I'm going to guess these castles are going to be dominated by NPCs to start with. So anyway, I need to take a quick bio break. I'll be right back. Nature calls. So the devs said it would take hours to go from top northwest to bottom southeast. Yeah, that is good to hear. That's why the middle map nodes will be war zones, because they'll be close to every other node. Distance matters in AOC. Let's continue on.
In the Dwarven starting area to level with your friend. The world size in Ashes is planned to be truly massive, approximately 480% of them being instanced. There will be no group finder in this game and uncovered. Additionally, there will be some zones in the world that will Planned to be truly massive, approximately 480 square kilometers in size, including both water and land content, as well as a diverse range of biomes ranging from deserts, swamps, plains, forests, snowy mountains, tropical islands, and everything in between. This game will be fully open world
and there's underground, apparently. There's the whole underground bit of the game. So not only do you have, what is on the surface, you also have, I'm going to guess, an underworld of some kind that you'll be able to explore.
also features underground zones known
Yeah.
as the Underrealm. Ashes of Creation will feature an in-game viewable world map, however starting out much of it will be covered in a fog of war until areas have been explored and uncovered. Additionally, there will be some zones in the world that will experience all 4 seasons, which will bring about their own events, buffs, debuffs, and farming challenges. Seasons will rotate once each week, with a full 4-season rotation passing by every 4 weeks. When it comes to the leveling, the max level will be 50, and it will take roughly 45 days of playing 4 to 6 hours per day for the average player to level from 1.
Okay, I'm going to call it right now. No. Some no-lifer is going to figure out how to get to max level in like 10 days. Yeah, I mean, it'll happen. The first person at max level will be like 10 days, maybe a week. I mean, somebody's going to figure it out. Somebody's probably already trying to figure it out who's already in the alpha. But in the betas, somebody's going to figure out how to level very, very quickly. And it's not going to be, speedrunners. And it's not even going to be a speed run, I think, so much as they're just going to figure out the best ways to make XP. And they're going to figure out the chink in the system, and they're going to exploit it. And so will other people once they figure out what it is.
1 to 50.
But I mean, we know. I mean, anybody that has spent any time in any MMO knows that the developers think it's going to take this long to do something, and then the players come along and go, "Nope, it takes." But at the same time, I mean, a person like myself, I love to experience the game. Right? I want to know the story. I want to get to know things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just going to play 24 hours a day and easily make it in a week. And the thing is these are the same idiots. I shouldn't say idiots. These are the same people that piss and moan about how there's a lack of content in the game, right? Like, they'll be 30 days into the game. They're like, oh, this game sucks, man. There's no content. They got nothing to do. It's like, dude, like, you spent the first week getting to max level while the rest of us are like at level 30, after 30 days. We're at level 30 or whatever. And we're like, nah, man, there is tons of content. Or these guys get to the end and it's like, oh, well, we can't do all this content. You guys need to hurry up. You guys suck. You're too slow. It's happened in every game I've ever played. I love to experience the content. I love to explore. I am a looter. I loot everything. Even if I don't need it, I will probably hang on to it and just so I can sell it to something, or whatever. So that's kind of what I look at, and Code can attest to that. Devil Dog, thank you very much for following. Welcome to the channel. Anyways, let's continue.
Definitely more on the hardcore side of things in that regard. Unlike a lot of modern MMOs, flying mounts will be extremely rare in Ashes of Creation, that's achievable only for guild leaders that own one of the game's 5 castles, the mayor of Metropolis nodes, and through legendary limited time dragon eggs that players might obtain from a world boss. It's unlikely there will ever be more than 10 players per server with temporary access to flying, and when you consider that each server will have a population of between 8 to 10,000 players.
See, I think he's wrong here, because there are 5 castles, so that'll be 5 flying mounts. If there's rare event eggs, he said they were like limited time, whatever. Okay, maybe there's 3. Let's get you 8. but mayors of metropolis nodes, unless again there's 103 nodes, and say you have a metropolis in the middle, and then there's 5 nodes where you cannot, or 4 to 5, well, I would say even 3, depending on where your node is located. Um, say 3 to 5 nodes around you cannot have a metropolis. Can the one next to those have a metropolis? Because if they can, if you only need to have 1 or 2 empty nodes between metropolises, you could conceivably have more than 10. You could probably have 20 or 30. But it's still going to be rare. It's still going to be rare as hell, which, people are going to look up and, ooh, it's a player, which I think is still pretty cool. You can make a metropolis and allied nodes, I think, to cover more distance for fast travel. So I don't think they're going to make these things too impossible, because if you make the flying mounts too impossible, then people aren't going to try to get to them, and they're not going to put the effort. And sure, somebody's got a mount, you elitist. I'm going to try not to swear, but it's going to have a negative connotation, where I think you're going to want to have these things accessible enough that, yes, they're very, very difficult to get, but a casual player still has the ability to get one through some means. So I think if you have a server size of 8 to 10,000 players, I think if you had it so even 500 players could get a flying mount, I think that would be fairly reasonable. If you had it to 10 players, it's not going to have really much prestige. It's going to look cool, but I think for your average player, I think it could end up just coming off more as a negative thing than a positive thing. Just based on my experience of similar things happening in other MMOs that have tried to do similar things like this, where it's ultra rare. It doesn't always play out very well. So let's see. Han says they disagree. Alex, I agree with this one. It would be really discouraging if only the no-lifers could get flying mounts and everyone else is just locked out. Han says if every casual player can get a mount, it wouldn't be special. It will become a common thing and lose its spark. Well, what I mean by casual, like they have the random eggs. Casual person can get that, right? So a casual person in the right place at the right time could still get one of these. And that's what I mean. Like there needs to be very special, very rare circumstances that even a casual player could have the ability to get these. Now, the other thing you kind of come down to is farming, right? Like you don't want to have it where players are just farming these things over and over and over again. So you're definitely going to have a server limit cap, where maybe the server says, of the eggs, or the random eggs will allow 20 on the server at any one time. So if somebody's figured out how to farm these things, when you get to that 20, boom, it's done. Now, they say they're limited time eggs, which kind of makes me think that you're going to get this animal, and that this animal is going to die. Has a very short lifespan. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And that, I think, is a good thing. I think that's going to allow the casual player to have hope, and it's going to drive them to participate in those events that would give them access to one. I do think it's a really good idea. Each castle has one, because that serves two things, right? If you own a castle and you have a flying mount, chances are you're not straying too far from the castle, which means people see you flying around on one of these things, and they're going to probably assume that there's a castle nearby. So you could, in fact, be shooting yourself in the foot, because if players don't know where the castle is, depending on if they're a mystery, if they spawn randomly within servers, server generation, which I think they should. Um, then you can kind of give away your position. And at the same time, having a flying mount gives you a really good lay of the land because you can get way above the siege and see how the other players have positioned themselves, and then you can kind of direct your battle that way. 30-day lifespan, people can kill the mount as well. Yeah, and I was thinking it had to be I was thinking probably about a month lifespan would make sense, and people can kill the mount as well, which would mean all mounts must be killable. I'm just guessing some mounts can be revived while others can't. Um, Hank, I agree not every pleb should get the craziest stuff, but it's still kind of sad if you have no chance if you don't play all day. People have work life, etc. So there should be a way for them to get a chance of nice content too. Exactly, exactly. And it gives hope. The one thing that's going to keep people subscribed is the chance that they can still get something like this. In a way, it's almost like gambling, which I shouldn't say because the European Union is going to get its panties all up in a bunch and won't let anybody play the game because it's too much like gambling to get this kind of mount. But anyways, I mean, this is just a small portion of the game. You know, this is a trophy. This is, it's definitely a sign of um, wealth and or power. And I like the idea that it's really rare. Like I said, if you have a server of 800 to 10,000 players, I would say if you had 500 flying mounts, it's still rare enough that you're not going to see too many of them, but it's not so rare that you're never going to see it. And players aren't necessarily going to hoard it. And I think it does give the average player a little bit of hope that they can get into this. And let's face it, once the player community figures out all the different ways to get these things, there'll be guilds out there that are going to specialize in attaining whatever random areas are of getting these eggs. So if you have to do certain content or find certain creatures to get these flying mount eggs, um, you can be sure that there's going to be guilds out there specializing in getting them and hanging on to them and making or getting the eggs and selling them and making a profit. If you can do that, it depends if they're bind on pickup.
Seeing them will be really epic. It's also worth mentioning that fast travel will be extremely limited in this game, as the developers want distance to matter. The only form of fast travel that will be possible is if a scientific node reaches the metropolis stage. At this point, players can construct a building that offers fast travel only to nodes within the metropolis's zone of influence. But that's pretty much it for my basic explanation of what Ashes of Creation is without going super in depth on stuff. Next, I want to talk about why I believe this is the most exciting.
Let's see. Hank says that's not the only thing you can have as a unique achievement. For example, if a tamer got a flying mount, he can't create the best gear because he isn't a crafter, etc. It's balanced that way, so everyone can have something unique, I think. Yeah, and I think if you're doing animal husbandry and you're like a master at animal husbandry, you're probably going to have an increased ability to create a flying mount of some kind. And I think that could also be a form of profit. And I'm going to guess through breeding, you could probably only breed one flying mount every so often, maybe once every month or once every 3 months. So you're not popping these things out like crazy, but you're consistently helping put some of these creatures in the air. And because I'm going to guess with the animal breeding, you can mix and match that. Maybe you can only specialize in one type of flying creature so that it's unique to you, so that there could be 20 other animal husbandry people around and they can't create the same creature you are. And you could potentially even have it where Yeah. So sorry, Core Code's letting me know that he's his girlfriend took him away. Women. Um, but anyways, yeah, so you can have unique creatures and stuff like that, and it's all kind of good as far as that goes. And maybe in order to create a flying mountain, you have to get a very rare substance that is like one per node, anyways, so that not every animal husbandry can specialize to a flying mountain. Like I'm just thinking out loud, right, of ways that you could still keep it very rare, very special, but still, again, have it somewhat attainable. So if you have one of these eggs, a flying creature egg, you could sell it for, I don't know, 10,000 gold. I don't know how currency is going to work. So even if a casual saves up their money, they can get one of these mounts. And I could see there being people out there who would go to great lengths to save up a bunch of money just to have it once, just to show that they did, and to take screenshots. Anyways, I think he's just wrapping up the video here, so let's continue.
Upcoming MMORPG, and why this game isn't just a pipe dream, rather something many people, including myself, will be testing with no NDA before the end of this year.
Oh, this one, no, this little spell down here. There, let's just go back a bit. Yeah, this little spell right here, that's like a World of Warcraft Fireball or Rain of Fire spell ability. I'm looking at some of these, like even that one there looks. I think that's from World of Warcraft. It's at least it's similar enough to World of Warcraft. Yeah, some stuff that your guild will need. Other factions got it, and you got to steal it. It can be applied on everything, including mounts. Yeah, and I think that's kind of cool. And that kind of works towards that faction stuff.
Many people, including myself, will be testing
there's a couple
with
of
no
skills
NDA
down there
before
that
the
look
end of
almost
this
identical to World of Warcraft.
First of all, it goes without saying,
icons.
after everything I've just explained about the game, it will be the most ambitious fantasy MMORPG ever attempted. The game will truly have something for everyone. It's not just a PvP MMO or a PvE MMO, it's a genuine PvX MMO that has pretty much everything. Usually when a new MMORPG is announced and they talk about their plans when it comes to game design, it's always vague. There's a ton of question marks on many core systems, and it doesn't take long before players can look at the ideas of the developers and straight up say, this is a bad idea, this won't work. New World has been a perfect example of this since the first time I tried the game in 2018 to recently when it announced its delay. When it comes to the game design of Ashes of Creation, it seems to me that almost every aspect of the game has been clearly thought out, and thanks to years of Q&As between the community and developers, we have a clear blueprint for how this game will actually play out if you care to read it on the Ashes of Creation wiki. When it comes to the core game design systems, there's nothing I'm overly concerned about. Everything seems to make sense and follow a strong design principle of risk versus reward. For me, the only real question mark I have about the game is how fun will the combat be? What does their 75% action tab hybrid combat system actually play like? I think if they can nail that and just follow the blueprint for this game until completion, it will be a guaranteed success. Ashes of Creation is primarily a privately nail that and just follow.
Like, check this out, like right here, right? The bomb comes down, and just the detail, right, of this dude being absolutely incinerated, like that. That's a good attention to detail, right? Like it's little minutia, like that I think is really cool, right? You got all this stuff here getting blown apart, but mainly this guy just completely getting annihilated.
The blueprint for this game until completion, it will be a guaranteed success. Ashes of Creation is primarily a privately funded MMORPG made by an MMO fan frustrated by the direction of the genre, who was extremely successful in business earlier in life. Since I first covered this project in 2017, we've seen the studio he created expand to over 100 developers, attracting people from Blizzard, Sony Online Entertainment, Daybreak Games, and more. This year especially, we've seen production for Ashes of Creation ramp up significantly, and in recent live streams we've seen gameplay sessions of many core systems working, such as the
what's that like Is that zebra velociraptors? Yeah, the lava raptors. They're lava raptors. They look like zebra. This is zebra raptors. It's kind of cool.
Mayoral system, early
That must
hybrid
be from a
combat,
summoner.
real-time node development, open world dungeons, a 40-man raid, the caravan PvP system, basic professions, and the purchasing of in-node player housing. What's more impressive is the creative director's commitment to transparency, despite the project still likely being a solid 2 years from completion.
Yeah, so he says 2 years from completion, and this is from July 18th, which is just a couple of days ago. Though I'd say a solid year. 2 years, I think, is kind of stretching it. Especially what I've seen here. It looks like they got most of the graphics down. There are some placeholder graphics I've noticed. Definitely some things that they're borrowing from Blizzard. But like he says, if they have Blizzard developers on here, then those guys probably came with their Blizzard toolkits, because you can bet, there's a lot of stuff that they did, that they worked on at Blizzard, that is part of their portfolio, right? So that's probably why we're going to see some similarities in some of those graphics.
Sometime this fall, we've been told that people who have access to the game's Alpha 1 test will be able to stream and make content about the game with no NDA, and when you consider that Amazon's New World still has a strict NDA, despite previously being 2 months out from its supposed release, to me shows a lot of confidence in a product. Now, all of that's not to say that Ashes of Creation hasn't had its problems or drama surrounding its development, because it certainly has. Releasing Ashes of Creation Apocalypse, the Battle Royale testing environment on Steam, caused nothing but confusion to the people that were casually following the project, and in the past the community went long periods of time without seeing any tangible gameplay due to an issue where large portions of Foundation code had to be rewritten, essentially delaying the game by 1 year. But in 2020 we've really started to see Ashes of Creation come together.
It is a
Almost
very
every
nice
monthly
looking
live
game.
stream we've been shown new gameplay, we've already had players get into the early Alpha 1 client and talk about their experiences thanks to no verbal NDA, and community perception of the project as a whole has shifted from extremely skeptical to cautiously optimistic. Whilst there's still a long road ahead for Ashes of Creation, I have to say that in the 5+ years I've been a full-time MMORPG YouTuber, this is the only upcoming MMO that I've been able to look at and say to myself, if this game releases, it has a real chance of being the next truly successful MMORPG. Thanks for watching.
So basically, he was trying to suggest that WoW killer, and that's the problem with claiming any game as a WoW killer is WoW is killing itself. It doesn't need any help from any other games. I mean, their populations are dropping, the game's stagnant. I mean, it's so easy mode. The re-release of WoW Classic gave him a shot in the arm, but no, Blizzard's screwing itself over so much here.